Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to do a quick look at a package I received today. Amazingly quick delivery. As you can see from the postage stamp, it's from Taiwan. I had to sign for it on receipt, which was fine, but it arrived much quicker than I expected. And it arrived in good shape. So inside here is a pen, which we're going to look at. Inside the box, including this little payment slip. And as you can see, it's a Jupiter, so that may be a giveaway. The box was this little insert, which I'm assuming is the identifier of the seller. I'll do some more research to confirm that. So inside is a little card, kind of the same that was on there, and an interesting bookmark. Kind of looks like that sailor logo. But let's look at what we're really interested in, which is the pen. There's that logo, which you might recognize. Nothing else on here. There's a little damage on the box, but that's easy to correct if I was concerned about it, which I'm not. In here we find an instruction manual. It's all in Chinese, except for down at the bottom. Nothing on the back, and we see the pen. So right away you can see it's labeled Jupiter. You get the pen. You get a syringe, but no needle. They show in the instructions using it without the needle, and you pick up the pen. And the first thing you notice is it's very nice. It's Jupiter. I don't think anybody's done a review on Jupiter. Most people focused on Saturn, and I could have got a Saturn, but I decided this color pattern really matched that kind of stormy swirls within the atmosphere of Jupiter. You got a nice logo there at the top of the cap. The cap unscrews. About 2 1/4 turns, and you'll notice a very nice black nib with, again, the logo in it. I'm going to say that looks like a Jowo feed there, but I'll do some verifications on it. You can also see by probably the engraving on it. Section, the same material as the end caps. And there is a loose converter, because you can eyedropper it or use a converter. Or a cartridge. It's a 3-way combo pen. So I just wanted to show you as received. I'm going to do my usual clean out the nib, play around with the pen, figure out an ink to put in it, and take it from there. When I tried to put the cap on, I felt a little resistance. It appears that cap liner is spring-loaded, which is quite impressive. I like that. I paid probably about the same as I would have paid on the Fine Writing website. But delivery was fast, and I'm comfortable with eBay, and I didn't have to worry about translating the page and maybe missing something. I think this resin deserves a closer look up. I mean, did they try to capture Jupiter? I would say yes. But here's a NASA series of images of the planet, which shows it going through lots of changes, so you can almost make any swirly pattern and say Jupiter. Of course, you'd have to put the name on there. I think all in all, I'm very, very happy and pleased with the quality, the attention to detail, that little design in the clip, the roller ball, functional clip, nice little logo inside the cap finial. Completely clear, translucent barrel, which I think is injection molded. And I'm not certain these are turned acrylics. I mean, the Italians have been doing a good job at doing injection molding, which actually has a similar type of pattern. So this all could be injection molded, but whatever it is, it's a quality pen. Feels great in the hand. But I'm just really glad I picked this up. The brass one would have been fun and nice, but I think this is a more practical everyday writer, which is what I was going for. So I think we're going to have to ink this up and see how that interesting Jowo nib works. And it matches the trim on the pen. I toyed about what material the pen was made out of. Obviously acrylic, but you know, I thought maybe it could have been injection molded, but we're going to use the LED X-ray and determine that. The more I use this pen, the more this look just grows on me. Yeah, I don't have any other pen that looks anything like this. And when we put the LED X-ray in here, you can see it's a little bit transparent. Some light goes through that. When we look down into the cap liner, you'll see that's there, and it's spring-loaded, and that's really nice. But if you look inside, you can definitely see how this was machined from acrylic. So I would expect to see that same surface pretty much on the inside as the outside if it was injection molded, but it's just nice. And the other thing I think that gives it away is the way the veins in the resin work on this blind cap. So you can see how the properties of those two colors work in 3 dimensions. I figure these are 4 pens that are good to compare. Fine Writing Jupiter, the Pen BBS 355, the draw filler, the TWSBI Aurora, and the Pelikan M800. So the longest pen of this group is the 355. This is the Galaxy finish. Of course, the TWSBI Aurora is into itself, and I got it because these 3 resins have a similar type of swirly dark or black swirls in amongst the color. One of the main differences, which leads me to believe turned acrylic versus injection molded, is the amount of pearlescence that are in these 2 resins, and the Galaxy just has a phenomenal amount. And the interesting part is the M800 is in the small side of these series of pens. Posted, they also take on an interesting character. Even though the Fine Writing Jupiter pen does post, it's an extremely long pen. So is the 355 extremely long, but this is a little heavier pen, this is a little lighter pen, so balance-wise they kind of even out. And the Aurora from TWSBI and the M800 post about the same. So obviously these are much more postable. But, you know, posting to me is one of those things, like sometimes when you're in a situation where you got to put the cap someplace, posting is the most appropriate place. But, you know, I generally carry a pen case with me so the cap can go in the pen case or in my pocket or things of that nature. Looking more closely at the business end, I like the section on the Jupiter. As you can see, it's a little bit more girthier, or it's wider than the Pen BBS section. Kind of wide like the Aurora is. Doesn't have as much of a flare out, but I'm okay with that. And of course the M800 has that classic small section, not in girth so much as in length. This nib is generally a real 6. This is kind of a little bit smaller than a 6, at least that's the way it looks here. That's the rounded medium. The TWSBI has the smallest nib in this group. Interesting that both the TWSBI and the Fine Writing, which are Taiwanese companies, both have black nibs and black trim. And obviously the M800 is an 18 karat two-tone nib that just is outstanding in its own right, but of course the price differential is also very substantial between these pens. You may ask how you know it's a Jowo nib in the Fine Writing pen. Well, here's the Fine Writing pen, black, with the logo laser etched in there, and here's a Goulet Jowo nib with the Goulet logo etched in it. The scroll work is the same, the nib is the same. Here's 2 nib assemblies I pulled out of Franklin Christoph pens. As you can see, exactly the same assembly, same scroll work. Here the Franklin Christoph logo is applied a little bit differently. And here we have an example of a 2-tone nib, Jowo nib, which is Goulet nib. And here's a gold Jowo nib, and a lack of that engraving, but it's still an excellent nib. So Fine Writing has definitely chosen a nib which is used by a lot of pen makers. Excellent nib. I like them. Thought it'd be good to do a little bit of a close-up of these two black Jowo nibs, just to exemplify the way the scroll work is and the way the logos have been laser etched into it. And both of these are extra fine, so they're comparable. And you may ask, how does Jowo compare with Bach? Well, here we are with a Bach nib in the middle. This is also an extra fine. The nib assemblies are not interchangeable. The threads are in a different location. This is actually a little wider than the Jowo, even though they're both approximately number 6 sizes. And this is not branded, so it has the goat there in the middle. And the scroll work is different. So I think it's easy to tell the difference between the two of them once you finally know what they are. Then if we turn them around to look at the feeds, you'll also notice a distinctive difference. The feeds all appear to be made out of the same injection molded resin. It could be ABS. I've read a lot that seems to work good. And I'm certain there's some fillers in it that improve the properties and make it more like a hard rubber material. You know, the Jowo has that distinctive triangular shape here. It's flatter, where the Bach one is more rounded and has a little bit different shape, but there's to me more in common than not in common. And with a side view, you will see where the Bach feed extends a little bit closer to the end of the nib. The fins are deeper than they are on the Jowo feed. So this, to me, would work better when you're flexing a nib so you don't potentially contact the paper, depending upon the angle that you're holding the pen. I just wanted to give this a shot. This is an ink I bought a while ago at the DC Pen Show. Or was it another pen show? Here's the color card. I mean, it's certainly a deep red. I don't know what I would call it. There's a little bit of sheen there. I don't know whether it's coming across as much as I would like, or if I see with my eyes. And if you look at the chromatography, I mean, it's just a solid red with a dark patch here at the top. So let's see how it works in the pen. We saw when we compared this to other pens that this is not a small pen. In fact, I think it's about as big as I'm comfortable with. You know, the cap unscrews, and you know exactly when you reach the end because of that spring action. And when you recap, you have to put pressure on it to get those threads to catch. That kind of threw me a little bit in the beginning. The section's a great size. The pen fits very, very well in the hand, unposted. And mechanically, yes, you can post it and it posts securely, but that's a very long pen, like well over 7 inches. So it's usable though because of the light cap. Doesn't really backweight the pen that much, but this is a pen I would definitely use unposted unless I needed a place to put the cap. I mean, for an extra fine nib, this writes well. You do get a decent amount of feedback. It's a little bit different than any other extra fine nib I've used, and I'll probably do a little bit of fine tuning on it, probably just the polishing with the micro mesh. The other thing I found interesting is it really writes okay in reverse. You know, not that I'd ever want to do that because it is extra, extra, extra fine, triple X there. So I just really enjoy this pen. I find myself grabbing it and writing with it, and I used a converter instead of using an eyedropper because I just don't want to have to deal with all that ink. As Wasky Squirrel has found out with some of his pens that have a lot of ink, if he's going to do 3 fills, it'll be a while. So, and the converter is actually not unattractive inside the pen. You know, this resin is extremely transparent and very nice. And this pen just feels good in the hand. That section is probably about as big as I'd want. My fingers just barely touch on occasion, but you can move your fingers anywhere you want. There's nothing here that's going to stop you from holding the pen, whatever. There's a little step up here, but it's basically unnoticeable. So now we're going to rate this pen. I have to give it a 9.5. I mean, I think it's excellent. I'm very happy that I got a chance to get one of these. Will I ever get the brass one? I don't know. I am not as motivated. It's going to be the same nib. It's going to be weighted a lot differently than this one is, and I like the way this one's weighted. I think it's almost a perfect weight for a pen. Again, you know, for my taste. So we're going to do a hot nib swap just for those of you that might find it interesting. So if you're going to do a nib swap, why not just go all the way? So from an extra fine to a 1.1. And as we know, we need to unscrew this, take out the converter, because the converter will hold in the nib assembly if it's left there. And of course you get ink on your fingers. And what I would normally do is I would drop this in water if I was going to keep this change permanent, but I'm not. And we're going to screw this in. Works very well. Put back in the converter. Screw this down. So I want to make a note of where that O-ring is at the bottom. I prefer the O-ring up here before the threads. That way you don't get that look of ink on the threads, which is, I don't think, that attractive. But, you know, I would silicone grease this if I was going to use it as an eyedropper. So now that we got this all put together, now we shouldn't have done that because we need to prime the feed. Because the feed is dry. And I'm turning the converter to just push some ink through there. I've done this before. Oh, there we go. Some ink showed up, so we're going to put this back on. Hopefully this real-time nib swap is working okay for you. And we have liftoff. So now we have a 1.1 stub. And very smooth in this direction and very fine. As you can see, it's even finer than the extra fine. And then on your horizontal strokes, it's not quite as wide as I expected. Yeah, we got to cross our F's. So this is, as a 1.1 stub goes, I'm not overly impressed with this. I think I wrote with this a while ago. It was in a Franklin-Christoph pen that I haven't inked up for a while. I mean, it's sensitive to angle, and you really don't get as much line variation as I would expect. Yeah, I think I would do some work on this nib too if I was going to use it day to day. But for an everyday writer, we're going to go back to the extra fine. I did the nib swap off camera. There's no reason to watch it twice. So I have to admit that I actually like this extra fine more than this 1.1 stub that I threw in there. You know, maybe I'll throw that gold broad nib that's nicely ground that I had also in a Franklin-Christoph pen. So we've reached the end of this video, and hopefully you found it interesting. And, you know, I even enjoyed doing my little exploration of nibs. I was reintroduced to some of my Jowo nibs that I haven't used for a while. So thank you for watching. May have many great writing experiences, and here's another example of a pen that if I wasn't active on social media and Instagram and Twitter and who knows what, I would have missed it. But now that I have it, I'm extremely pleased. I mean, it is a very interesting design. It's very functional. Extremely well made. You got a nice number 6 Jowo nib that you can swap out for a ton of different types of nibs. So it has a lot going for it. So it's the end for now. Enjoy the day. Enjoy your writing. Enjoy your life. Bye for now. And I do like this color.